If you're here and we're here, then you have found the WDW Fan Zone show. We've got John, we've got Jess, Darlene, and I'm Stuart. And we're going to kick it off right now with Jess and the latest Walt Disney World news.
Hot dog. Here's the latest Disney news. Exciting news from Animal Kingdom. Sony, the female tiger at Maharaja Jungle Trek, is pregnant. The new baby tiger is expected by the end of the year. On Saturday, September 21st, the Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind will be playing the song September by Earth, Wind, and Fire on repeat all day long. And I'll sing it for you if you want. Just kidding. All right. With the relocation of 3 dolphins from the seas with Nemo and friends, Disney will be closing the Epcot Seas Adventures Dolphins In-Depth Tour. Disney stated this decision came after a comprehensive evaluation as to what is best for these dolphins as infrastructure work progresses at the seas. Reservations will be honored through October 19th, 2024, and then will permanently close. Epcot Seas Adventures Dive Quest, which is a scuba experience, will also close on October 19th, but this will be a temporary closure to reopen in 2025. Scat Cats Club Cafe at Port Orleans Riverside will be closing for refurbishment on September 23rd until mid-October. But don't worry, if you're going to Port Orleans for beignets, they will be offered at the Sassagoula Floatworks and Food Factory, which is right next to Scat Cats. Don't forget to check park hours before planning your trip and check again once you arrive to see if they've changed. And the Walt Disney World area is expecting summer weather with storms and showers popping up at any time. Check a trusted weather app and radar while on your trip to track lightning because outdoor attractions do close when lightning is closed. And that's the latest Disney news straight to you from Central Florida. Back to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Jess. Have a great week.
Thank you so much. See
All right.
you real soon.
All right, take care.
Bye
Great
bye.
as
Yeah.
always.
We're actually going to have a lot of like 80-degree weather this
Yeah,
upcoming week.
just concentrates on the parks, but there was a couple of tidbits of Disney Cruise Line news that I want to mention. Most cruise lines charge about $15 as a corkage fee. A corkage fee means if you bring your bottle of wine to dinner and they open it up for you, it's called a corkage fee. Disney doesn't charge $15 like most cruise lines. They charge $27 and it's going up $2. It's going to be $29 starting September 24th.
Wow.
Also, if you brought a copy of a birth certificate to Disney as proof of who you are and whatever, no more. It has to be an original. I don't know why they allowed copies before, but it has to be originals going forward. So that's it with the news, I think. Unless anybody else has any news from around the world, or when I say around the world, I mean the other parts. All right.
Well,
So John just came back from Disneyland at a Run Disney event, and he'll give us some of the highlights of it. And he's gonna, we've all been to Disneyland, so we all know the differences between the two, and we're not going to compare, for the most part, what attractions are here and there and the differences. We've done that before on a past episode, and we could do it again sometime in the future. But it's going to be more like, it's a completely different experience, but yet very similar at the same time. And we'll get into all that during this show. So, John, why don't you kick us off with wherever you want? You pick the starting point.
well, let's pick the starting point of the starting line. So the reason we were out in the Disneyland Resort was to participate in the first ever Disneyland Halloween race weekend. In fact, I have my shirt here from the
I love
Chills
it.
and Thrills Challenge.
That's awesome.
Who's on it?
It's Jack and Sally.
Oh,
So
cool.
and the I'll talk about it in just a moment here, but the medals were fabulous too. But we were out there. It was the first time they've had this race weekend in Disneyland. And as a lot of our listeners probably know, the Disneyland races had gone away for, oh my gosh, almost 6 years, I think it was.
Yes.
They'd stopped in 2017, was the last one, November 2017, which coincidentally was the first time I ran a Run Disney race in Disneyland. But we wanted to go experience this new race weekend there for Halloween. And it's also going to help me get my Coast to Coast medal this year. Coast to Coast is when you run 2 races, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. So I'll be running a half marathon at the Wine and Dine weekend in
So that will make you bi-coastal.
Bi-coastal, yeah.
That's a term you hardly ever hear anymore.
Yeah.
And all it means is East Coast, West Coast. That's it.
Right.
Don't read anything else into it, please.
Yeah. So that was the primary reason we were going. It sounded interesting. We liked the themes of the races, and we haven't been to Disneyland in quite a while, so we wanted to go for that. Little did we know that when we got there, they were going to have a heat wave, a dangerous heat wave. And it was actually over 100 degrees each of the 6 days we were there, with one of the days topping off at 109 degrees. So it's not supposed to be that hot in Disneyland, but
makes me glad that I was here in Florida.
safe and hot Florida, right?
Yeah.
So that was why we were there. And while we were there, even though it did get to be very hot, we were able to get a lot done, but we were not in the parks between the hours of 1 and 5. So by that time, it was already into the 90s, and touring the parks in the 90s is not fun. We've talked about our hints and tips to try to get by with the hot temperatures, but so yeah, we were not in the parks during those hours because it was oppressive.
I just put around my neck fan.
We did see a number of neck fans, and it was interesting to me that so many people stayed in the parks when it got to be the middle of the day, as hot as it was.
Could it be because they have limited time there and they needed to
I'm sure that had to do something with it. And I'll say that overall, that the crowds were very busy, but they were not as busy as I've seen them in the past.
Yeah.
So the lines to the attractions, there were times when Pirates was only a 5-minute wait.
Wow.
Which in Disneyland is saying something.
That is.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that the heat had something to do with it.
Hmm.
And again, there were still a lot of people in the parks. It was difficult to get some restaurants. In fact, we tried to get into Blue Bayou, and we were never able to do it.
Wow.
But that's not a surprise. It's such a popular restaurant. Always has long line. I shouldn't say long lines, but a lot of people wanting to get in there. Every once in a while, they would open the walk.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt you for a second. Darlene, what was so interesting that you're peeking at your blinds?
It sounded like somebody was like knocking on the window. It must be raining, or maybe there's bugs or something. I don't know.
Well, it seems like it bugged you out.
It did. I'm
Hopefully
like,
nobody's stalking you.
what on earth is going on? Kind of
For
creepy.
those of you who are listening to us and not watching us on YouTube, you missed it. All right, go ahead, John.
Oh,
Okay.
golly.
Sorry for the interruption.
Ah.
So yeah, the restaurants were tough to get into. The Blue Bayou did every so often have the walk-up line available, so you could see it in the app. Most of the time, it would say there's no walk-ups, but whenever they had it, it was at a bad time. So it was 2:30 in the afternoon, and as I said, we weren't even in the parks during that time,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't work for us. But we did get to go to some other restaurants, and we got to see the attractions we wanted to. We did make use of their individual lightning lane and multi-lightning lanes.
Okay.
And it's a little bit different in Disneyland. So in Disneyland, you can book the multi-lightning lane ahead of time. if you book it for your entire trip, meaning every day that you have a ticket, you would have to pay, and it's $30 a day there. You would have to pay that all up front. And we had a 5-day ticket.
Wow.
We chose not to do that, and it's good because we didn't get it every day. But one of the reasons for getting it in Disneyland and the Disneyland Resort is you get PhotoPass pictures along with it, which you
Oh.
don't in Disney World.
Wow.
And after we had run the races, we wanted to get some PhotoPass magic shots. They had a Run Disney magic shot where it had Mickey and Minnie in their running shoes, and they had a place in California Adventure where the photographers had that magic shot, and we were trying to get it a few different days, and we ultimately did, but we were able to get that picture that we wanted, as well as other PhotoPass pictures as part of it, as well as using it to cut our weight on lines. And we're able to do that effectively. It seems that you're able to get more attractions. So when you're done with one, another one's available. And you can cross back and forth between the two parks, like you can extend your multi-lane from one park to another, as long as you have a park hopper or annual pass in Walt Disney World. Their park hopping starts at 11 o'clock. So you can go to a new park at 11 o'clock if you have the park hopper option.
That's nice.
I will say we did not use the individual lightning. Well, there's 2 rides where they have the individual lightning lane, and that's Radiator Springs Racers in California Adventure and Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland Park. We knew that Rise of the Resistance is the same there as it is in Walt Disney World, and we've been on Rise of the Resistance a number of times, so we did not purchase that. I will say that was the most expensive of the 2. It was $26 for Rise of the Resistance.
Wow.
in the Disney. We did not do that, but we did do Radiator Springs Racers, and we knew we hadn't been there in a while. We wanted to get on it, and when it's as hot as it was, to wait out in the sun in that line for Radiator Springs Racers would have been miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So we did use it to get on there, and we went right through. We were on the attraction in less than 3 minutes from when we started walking in the line.
So, how much is a ticket for Disneyland and California Adventure now?
There are offers where you can get either 3 days or 4 days for $99 a day or $89 a day.
That's not bad.
Oh, that's not bad. No.
Compared to
not at all.
here?
It's a little bit less expensive. I know they have some of the similar offers in Orlando, although I think they end at the end of September. I was looking at October, and they didn't extend into the days in October, at least as of yet.
Yeah, I have a family member. I don't want to mention who the family member is, and it's not me, unfortunately. I wish it was me. Who's planning a trip to Disneyland Japan in another year. And I was told by this person, this family member, that they're going for about $69, I think, or $60
A day.
for a ticket,
Mhm.
which
Wow.
bring that back. They've got a yen for pricing their tickets. Come on, Disney. Disney World, come on, bring our prices down here.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're gonna need to start offering discounts on them.
Mhm.
Well, and they do have deals right now for 3 days and 4 days. Yeah, so it was inevitable, I think.
You talking about Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World.
Yeah, I know we're off topic. Just quickly, I was in Magic Kingdom a couple weeks ago, and the park was there were people there. Don't get me wrong, but it was not wall to wall people. You could actually get things done without a lightning lane.
What time did you go of the day?
Morning, like late morning to early afternoon,
Okay.
or middle morning to early afternoon. Then I was in Epcot, same time frame this past week. And I think because Food and Wine just started. Now, this was the strange thing. The parking lot was empty, but the parks itself were crowded. It was more crowded than I've seen in a while in Epcot, and I guess there are a
The
lot of
parking
people
lot was
staying at
empty?
resort. The parking lot was empty. Yeah, you could still get spot. Where the tree is divided, and then there's more parking in the back. Well, you could still. There were plenty of spaces before those trees in the front part of the parking lot. It was just strange.
I have
But
no idea what the parking lots look like in Disneyland. Because I didn't go to any of the parking lots. Being from out of
yeah,
town,
I've
we
seen them, but I never paid attention to any of them.
yeah, they have some very big parking garages, and we saw them as we were coming in on our Uber. But I couldn't tell how many cars were there.
Did
And
did you mention which resort you stayed at?
I did not, but we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel for
Okay.
the first time. We stayed in the DVC Tower, so it's the Discovery Tower,
Yeah.
and it's newly redone. Beautiful,
Is that
beautiful rooms, beautiful lobby area. Oh, and the air conditioning was fantastic. So when we would come in and we were hot from the oppressive heat, we would walk into that lobby, and as soon as those doors slid open, you could feel it. It was wonderful. So very comfortable rooms. We paid for a few nights because there wasn't availability for all of the nights through DVC.
Mhm.
But at the end, we did have a night of DVC points. We were able to work with the desk to connect the two reservations
Oh, nice.
so that we didn't have to change rooms. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a beautiful resort. The one challenge, and people who are familiar with Disneyland will know this right away, but the Disneyland Hotel is not close to the entrance to Disneyland. So Disneyland and Disney California Adventure, the entrances to them are across from one another with an esplanade in the middle, but the esplanade extends into downtown Disney.
Right.
Downtown Disney is a shopping and dining district with a lot of similar to Disney Springs, not nearly as big, but I would say it's about 8/10 of a mile to walk from the Disneyland Hotel to the entrance to Disneyland.
Roughly 6 years ago, two of us that are on this show, along with our better halves, were trying to get into the Disneyland Hotel, and they wouldn't let us through the lobby.
Really?
Yeah, we couldn't. Just
Well,
wouldn't
Yeah.
let us in.
No clue why, but
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, there was nobody stopping us this time. What I'll say is that the Disneyland Hotel has 4 towers, and they have a large open area where they've got a pool, they have a Trader Sam's and a Tangaroa Terrace restaurant. So they have a big open area in the middle, so you don't have to go through the lobby to get to the pool and the other areas in the middle. They walkways and trees and streams and waterfalls. It's a very well manicured property and beautiful property.
And you're paying for it.
Well, you are. You absolutely
But
are.
you know
So,
what? If you're paying that kind of price, you want that kind of
yeah,
atmosphere around
but
you.
you can get into that area without staying at the hotel. And there was nobody
Oh,
while
yeah.
we were there stopping anybody from going into the lobby either or any of the
Mhm.
shops, restaurants there. One of the things I think we've touched on this before that's very different about Disneyland versus Disney World, and again, it's because of the proximity of the properties and it's all condensed in space. You have to go through security to get into downtown Disney. So once you go through that security to get into downtown Disney, you don't have to go through security again to get
Right.
into the parks.
Right. And if I remember right, the way they had the security set, and it could be different now. Um, Once you went through the security, you could go to either Disneyland or California Adventure from there.
you could still
Correct.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two ends. There's I think it's the eastern end is Harbor Boulevard, and that's where the buses buses and other transportation drop guests off. You can come through security there. That's close to the entrances to Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. And then on the far end are the Disneyland Hotel and Pixar Pier Hotel.
Yep.
And so you come from those hotels and into security. So there's security on either end of downtown Disney, But then once you're in downtown Disney, you don't have to go through security again to go into any of those restaurants, any of those shops, or either park. Now, an interesting thing is Disney's California Adventure
Mm-hmm.
is in between California Adventure and downtown Disney.
Yes.
So you can go out one end of California Adventure to get into out of Grand Californian to go into the California Adventure Park. And there's separate security there and separate ticket takers to get in there. Or you can go out the other direction into downtown Disney. Either direction you go from in the hotel, you have to go through security.
Yes.
So you have to go through security to get into downtown Disney or through security to get into the park, because you can get into California Adventure from the street outside of security.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was in the California Adventure. I did a exercise in the morning while everybody else was sleeping in my party.
Oh,
I went over and I
Oh,
had
yeah.
a really nice time. I got a mat and everything.
very nice.
It was a lot of fun.
If we could actually go into California Adventure from downtown Disney without going through security, but if we wanted to come back into downtown Disney, we'd have to go through security. And I will say, depending on the time of the day, the security lines could be pretty long. And the other thing, and something I didn't like about their security after having been through Disney World, so I like that you could get in and then you're done with it. Whereas Disney World, anytime you go to another park, you have to go through security. But their scanners are very sensitive. So you have to take your wallet out, your phone out, your keys out, everything out.
Oh, it's like
And
going through to the airport.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yep. And they are very, very, very meticulous about digging through your bags. So they have flashlights and gloves, and they go through every last inch of your backpack or your purse. And whereas in Disney World, as long as you don't have an umbrella or glasses case, you go through the scanner, you walk through, and unless you beep, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that way in Disneyland. So
Wow.
security was a longer wait sometimes. Let's see what else was going on there. We're going to talk about some of the attractions, but one of the things we were happy to be there for that time is they have already started the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay for the Haunted Mansion there.
Mm.
And that's one of our favorite attractions. Now,
Ours too.
yeah, I
Mhm.
really love I love Nightmare Before Christmas.
I really wish they would do something similar here, but I think it would cause the Haunted Mansion to go down just for too long a period of time here.
Yeah, you're right. I think so too. It's such a different dynamic. A lot of
It is.
locals, we've said before, on the West Coast, and a lot of people traveling from around the world on the East Coast.
Mhm.
So you'd be disrupting people who really want to see the Haunted Mansion
Absolutely.
in Orlando, unfortunately. And that is the only virtual queue that they have in Disneyland is for the
Mhm.
Haunted Mansion holiday. But the reason they have that is not because of its popularity necessarily, but they're doing construction near the Haunted Mansion. And there's just not a lot of room for the queue. So you had to get into the virtual queue at 7 a.m. in the morning. And I think it's 7 a.m. if you were staying on Disney property. I think it's later. I'd have to double check that if you were not staying at a Disney resort. But we were able to do it. We tried 4 days and we got in. The first day, it was interesting. The first day I was there right at 7 o'clock, and well, that was not the first. That was not the first virtual queue I was trying to. The other virtual queue there was not in the parks, but it was for the race expo. And so they do the same thing in Walt Disney World. If you want, they have a virtual queue for the official Disney Run Disney merchandise. You have to get in the queue, and it tells you when you can come to go to the merchandise. So that was the first queue that I did at 7 a.m. that first morning we were there. And then I immediately went to, after that, to get the one for Haunted Mansion Holiday. We weren't in until group 79, which I think we got in 10 a.m. or so. But 2 other times I got group 3 and group 6. And
Not bad.
it was great because we went there. There was no queue at all. We went right on earlier in the day. The longer it got into the morning, late morning, and in early afternoon, the queue extended outside of the front of the attraction along the walkway.
Oh,
And there was the one time that we were on, it was actually the time we had group 3. We got in Zoom, we were done, we came out, and there was a line all the way down to the Hungry Bear restaurant in Critter Country.
wow.
But there were a couple of times when the attraction would stop and slow down. You know, they say happy haunts have interrupted your trip. So that slowed things down. So, and that's what happened as the day got longer, is that that queue would back up. But we were able to get on it 4 times. We loved it. And it was a great respite from the heat because it was nice and cool inside.
Oh, wow.
Have you been on Haunted Mansion Holiday, Stuart?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We just happened to be, well, we were there 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just happened to be there right in time for it to reopen with the overlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It opened, was it the end of August or beginning of September? So, I mean, it was the second full week in September when we were there.
I don't actually remember what
It was in
month.
September.
What? Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was.
but
September,
I
isn't
think
it?
it was a week after Labor Day, but I don't know when Labor Day fell out
Yeah.
in 2018.
I remember we had to go when Keith was off. So
Yep.
Some other things we noticed. Being a member of DVC was very beneficial there. Every restaurant we went to had at least a 10% discount for DVC members. Every restaurant. One of the restaurants we went to, Cafe Orleans, had a 15% discount.
really,
Counter service restaurants had a 10% discount.
wow,
And all of the gift shops had a 10% discount for
nice,
DVC, not annual pass, DVC.
wow,
They treated their DVC members there well. There is also a DVC lounge in Tomorrowland in Disneyland. We happened to stumble upon this one day. They have a what is it called? The Star Wars launch bay. Which the
yes.
Star Wars launch bay doesn't appear to be open anymore.
Oh,
But in that same area, in that building, which I think is where Carousel of Progress used to be before it moved to Walt Disney World, they have a very nice lounge in there. It was air conditioned.
wow.
It was only open from, I think, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. But
Which
they
is-
did.
Oh, no, ours is open from, I think, well, when it's open, 9 to 6, I think.
Okay.
Or
Yeah,
10 to
they had
6.
limited hours there. We
Yeah.
only got to go into it once, again, because we weren't in the park in the middle of the day. It was just that, well, it was, and we were there at like 5:45. And so we only had a very short visit there, but they had the lounge there. They had the discounts was really good. Now, one of the things from a DVC perspective that wasn't as good is they don't have a lot of options for food to take back to your room and put in your refrigerator or heat up in your microwave. The DVC resorts in Walt Disney World, they've specifically stock areas
Yeah.
with that kind of food, frozen food and cereal, milk, butter, those kinds of things.
You know, I think the difference at Disneyland is though you can go for a little walk. You know, it's not, and when I say a little walk, it might be a half a mile, maybe a little less, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. And there are places you can go and get your necessities
Yeah.
or wants.
Yeah.
You're right. There are, but it's definitely not it seems like it's close, but you end up walking 3/4 of a mile to a mile sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're right. But that was one of the things that I noticed was different. We were able to get like some cereal and a small carton of milk and maybe some Pop Tarts, but they didn't have the frozen things like they have in the Walt Disney World resorts. They do have DVC in both the Disneyland Hotel, the DVC rooms in the Disneyland Hotel and the Grand Californian, but they just didn't have the good options like they do in Walt Disney World.
Now, did you find? I know you can discuss things a little bit more, but did you find that when you go there, you get this? Did you get a different feeling than when you go to Disney World? I mean, is it something that you found was magical but not the same?
Well, do you want to start talking about some of those things?
Sure.
Sure. Well, that was part of what we're going to talk about is the difference.
Right.
So we've talked before, there are so many unique attractions that you can't get in Walt Disney World.
Right.
Like
One of them used to be here, and it's
Yeah.
no longer here.
Well, yeah, but like Cars Land. Now we know
Mhm.
there's plans for some Cars attractions, but right now there's no Cars Land. There's no
Right, and we don't know what's coming.
Radiator Springs Racers, so it's
Right.
great to be able to experience those. But there are so many other things that are unique there. For things like Alice in Wonderland, at the dark ride,
Yep.
which is unique. There's Pinocchio's Daring Journey and Snow White's Enchanted Wish and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So Fantasyland is very different, and you can walk through the castle, Sleeping Beauty Castle, which you can't do really in Magic Kingdom in Cinderella's castle.
And they still have what is it, Toontown?
Mickey's Toontown is
Yeah.
unique,
They still
absolutely.
have
We
that.
no
huh?
longer have it here at Disney World, but it's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I will say I like the vibe from Toontown, and we got the opportunity in the races to go backstage.
Oh, did
And
you?
in a couple of races, we went backstage. We got to see the back of Galaxy's Edge. We got to see the back of Toontown. We actually got to come out from the back of Toontown into Toontown. So it was neat to see that at night and to see a little bit more behind the scenes as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's actually where they have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in
Wow.
Disneyland.
That's where they put it.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense.
It does.
Mickey's
It does.
Toontown is really about Mickey and Minnie.
Yeah.
And they've got Roger Rabbit to boot in there, but they fit in there pretty well. We had multi-lane fast passes for that one day, and it went down. We got rescheduled it for another time that same day, and it went down again. So
Were you able to get a
Wow.
refund?
well, we got it. What they did was they gave you a multi-lane lightning lane that was good for any attraction in the park at any time.
Oh, well, that's
In
good.
fact, we actually used it on Indiana Jones,
Oh, I love that attraction.
Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
a
wait.
good one.
I can't wait for that to come to the Animal Kingdom. I love that attraction.
I know.
yeah. We know it's going to be themed differently, but it's the same track. And if that was themed, yeah, we love it too.
That's exciting.
And the thing about that attraction is you have to very often wait outside for a good bit of time until you get inside, and then there's part of the queue inside. And like I said, it was so hot, we wanted to get through there as quickly as possible. So it was great that we were able to use that multi-lane pass for that attraction.
Did you ride It's a Small World or Pirates?
We did Pirates a few times. Once or twice we did Pirates just to get a respite from the heat.
You know, without going into detail on the differences of Pirates and It's a Small World, those two attractions, and on top of that, Cars Land that's there, is another reason why every Disney World fan should at least once in their life get to Disneyland.
Yeah.
I will say you definitely feel the difference between Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. I love Magic Kingdom, but there's just something different. So the Fantasyland is very different. So
Mm-hmm.
we talked about Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and it was great when we rode Mr. Toad's Wild Ride a few times, and it only had a 5-minute wait.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
And the Disneyland attraction, and well, there were two Disneyland attractions that had the longer waits. One was Alice in Wonderland, but the second is Peter Pan's Flight. So that very often had a 40-minute wait. But in Disney World, it's even longer than that.
Yeah. It's always anywhere from 55 to like an hour and 20.
Oh, you have to remember, at Disney World, you're getting people coming from all over the U.S. and the world. And at
Yeah.
Disneyland, while you do attract people from other parts of the United States and across the world, and a lot from Australia too, and Japan, you're not getting as many guests all at once. It's a lot of locals.
It's always been known as a locals park. My family lives in San Diego, and that was their park to go and play in.
Well, and they have what's called
Nice to have.
the Magic Pass there. That's their version of an
Yeah.
annual pass.
Yep.
And they're not even selling it right now.
Yeah, no,
So
they're
they've
not.
cut
My
back
cousin
on
told
the
me.
number of people that can have it. So,
Yeah.
so they're already managing the number of people that are in the parks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it definitely has a different feel. One of the big things we noticed because of the heat, and I probably wouldn't have noticed this otherwise. Most of the seating for restaurants in the parks there is outside. They have a lot of outdoor patios with umbrellas and tables.
Yes, I remember
Yes,
seeing those.
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
so for both for counter service and table service.
Counter service, I remember during some of the table service. Yeah, but with table service, you can be seated inside, but you're right, it's a smaller area.
Well, a lot
Yeah, I
of them,
think we chose inside for most of ours.
Right, but you have to remember it's condensed. The park itself is condensed in
Yeah.
size compared to Disney World.
Yeah.
So you've got to fit a lot in a smaller area.
well,
You really
right,
do.
but they don't have. I think that's intentional
Yep,
because
absolutely.
normally Southern California is pleasant.
Yeah,
If it was 70 degrees in the evening, you'd want to
Right?
sit out at a patio.
exactly. And you're not going to get those thunderstorms and rain showers like you get
Right.
here in Florida.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There.
And in the wintertime, you're not trying to get warm.
Correct.
Correct.
So that we just, I never thought about it before. But when it's 92 degrees, 95 degrees, and you're trying to get lunch before it gets to be 100, we had a lot of difficulty finding restaurants where we could sit inside.
Wow.
Oh.
And so for instance, there's Avengers Campus, which is unique to Disneyland versus Disney World. There is no Avengers Campus in
No.
Disney World. We went to the PIM Test Kitchen, and that's counter service. And we saw pictures, and it said, "Oh, the registers for taking your food are inside." So we figured it was inside seating. Nope, no inside seating at all. So we're outside sitting under umbrellas, and it's 92 degrees, and
Oh.
we were just trying to make sure we got under shade.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's really mostly outdoor seating. The Blue
Wow.
Bayou is certainly an exception, but they have other restaurants that are table service that they're out on a patio terrace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was your favorite meal?
Oh my. Well, we had a real fun meal in the Disneyland Hotel, and that was at Goofy's Kitchen.
Oh.
Goofy's Kitchen is a character buffet.
Mm-hmm.
It's pricey, and the price was up because it was for Halloween, so they had some Halloween themed foods, and the characters were dressed in Halloween kind of attire. But we did get to see Chip and Dale, which
Oh.
Chip and Dale were on the medal for the 5K, and we each had our 5K medal.
Oh,
We got
cool.
to see them. We got to see Mickey and Minnie and Pluto. We saw Goofy go by, so they did have a lot of characters. It was very popular. And that was right in our hotel. We tried to get that for a number of days, and it was just never available. And then the last day we managed to find a spot that opened up.
Oh, good.
It was open. It was at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and we jumped on it, and we had a very nice time there. We
Good.
would have loved to get into the Blue Bayou, didn't make it. We stopped at Pixar Pier just to take a look at what that was like, and they've done a lot of renovations there. We ate at the Great Maple restaurant that's there, and
Oh,
we had lunch there. The food was very good. It was kind of noisy.
okay.
It was a little noisier than we would have liked. Let's see, any other special
Well,
restaurants?
you know, the food choices at Disneyland are very different from that at Disney World.
Yeah.
And the theming is different, but you still get that, you're still getting that all immersive Disney theming to
Mhm,
go along with it. And the
right.
food
Yeah.
quality is, I think it's excellent compared to Disney World. You know, I think they're both, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I think they're both excellent. So you're not really they're very different in the choices,
Mm-hmm.
but comparable in the immersiveness of Disney
I still like
um,
my cozy
and
cones.
quality food. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
I still like my cozy cones.
Yeah.
We
The
like
Monte
to
Cristo sandwich.
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
there was a place to eat inside at California Adventure, and that is at Flo's V8 Cafe. They
Yes.
have a lot of indoor seating there, and you get to look out onto the streets of Cars Land or over to the Radiator Springs Racers attraction. So we did
Mm-hmm.
eat there. It was nice and cool. The food was very, very good there. Yeah, we enjoyed that.
Oh, good.
One special place that we found for a snack and you could use for lunch that turned out real well the last day we were there was Bengal Barbecue, which is pretty much across from Indiana Jones attraction. So the counter to it is outside. It's just an outdoor counter that goes out into the walkway, but there's a breezeway between it and a shop where they
Hmm.
have these indoor tables, and they're themed. They're very much Adventureland themed, so kind of tropical. There's a display with the Shrunken Ned's head in there, and it was cooler. So the air conditioning from the shop was flowing into this breezeway, which was completely covered. You didn't have to worry about the sun. There were a number of tables in there. So we had a nice little respite in there one time. So I recommend that if you're looking for a place to get out of the heat and away from the crowds, stop by Bengal Barbecue over in Adventure.
Barbecue.
I'd like to
That
know how
sounds
many
good.
weeks of unbearable heat occur at Disneyland, at Disneyland Resort, you know, meaning Disneyland in California Adventure. I'll bet you hit the worst week of
We
heat.
hit the absolute worst. Well, the 109 degrees was a
And
record.
that's normal for Disneyland, Disney
Yeah.
World.
Their previous record was 106, and we
Wow.
hit 109.
Wow.
So yeah,
I think most of the time you're at Disneyland, you probably don't have to worry about the heat being a factor. But you should be prepared for it nonetheless. Where at Disney World, you have to be prepared for it. You know, unless you go from November, let's say late November through middle March, you really, you know, that's a time where it's cooler here. Not California weather, but it's cooler here.
yeah. We did notice that their Wi-Fi, I'm sorry, at least my experience was a number of times the Wi-Fi just wouldn't work for me. So if I was trying
Really?
something in their app or trying to do anything, I
Mhm.
had to drop the Wi-Fi to get my phone to work, either in the resorts or in the parks. So it wasn't like that all the time, but I definitely had much more trouble with their Wi-Fi
Yeah.
than I've had within Walt Disney World.
I wonder if it's because it's more of an urban setting than it is at Disney World in terms of Metropolis. And if the interference from buildings and highways and people and just the congestion alone.
But yeah,
Might,
there's a lot of people congested into one area. So
yeah.
in Disney World, you're distributed to different towers, I'm sure.
Mhm.
The different
It's
parks,
more spread out here.
they're
Yeah.
they're definitely spread out. But you've got California Adventure, Disneyland, and the hotels and downtown Disney all crammed into one little area.
Yeah.
I don't.
And the amount of towers you could, well, let's the phone. I don't know. I don't know who the service providers are there for internet service, but that could be a cause of it too.
Yeah,
Who knows? Someone knows, but it ain't me.
yeah. For the Run Disney fans, one of the things that was a big benefit for running in the Run Disney races at Disneyland is any of the photos that were taken of you during the race were automatically available to you in the Disneyland app for free.
Oh, nice.
You did
That's
not
nice.
have to have,
That's really nice.
you didn't have to buy a photo pass. And I said earlier about if you bought the multi-lane pass, you got the photo pass pictures in the parks. You didn't have to have that. So just the very fact you ran in the race meant any of the picture stops you got to were automatically included with your race itself. That was very helpful.
That's cool.
Wow.
But I will say, I don't think they had as many characters on the courses. They did have some really good characters, but they didn't have as many characters on the courses as I remember at the Walt Disney World races.
So what was I going to say here?
Well, while you're thinking about that, I will also say that the places there are a lot of places in the parks where you can get your pictures with characters. But overall, I don't know, the number of staged places, or I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about how many photo pass opportunities there are in the parks. There are definitely a lot of places for characters, and we did get some character pictures, like for instance with Miguel from Coco, which I don't think we've ever had a picture with him before. But we had trouble. You know what it is? We had trouble finding the special effects that you can get in the. So I said we were looking for those Run Disney effects in our pictures. We knew somebody else that had gotten them, and it took us a while to find somebody that had them. Where in Disney World, they have a lot of those magic shots at different places. So they'd be different magic shots for different locations, but it was hard to find photo pass photographers in the parks here at Disneyland that had those magic shots available. I don't know if that was just our experience or if it's really that different.
Could be. Now, I'd asked you earlier about comparing your general feeling. Like, you know how you walk into Walt Disney World, you come through that tunnel into the Magic Kingdom, let's say, and it overwhelms you at first, especially if you haven't been here in quite a while. Did you get that same feeling when you entered Disneyland?
I think you do, and in a different way. So, for instance, going into Disneyland, you do go under one of two tunnels to go under the railroad, which the railroad was not running while we were there.
Wow.
Oh, really? Is it under refurbishment?
It must be. But and that's a disappointment because I do like their railroad, especially with that Grand Canyon concourse that they have in Disneyland. It's it was kind of an afterthought, I think, from Walt Disney. He had this stuff he wanted to put somewhere, and he put it on the railroad, but it makes it so unique there. But it was not running. When you go under either the left or the right, and you step out into the square, going into Main Street USA, it does have that same kind of feeling, but I think it's even stronger because, as I think we've discussed before, the Main Street USA feel in Disneyland is stronger to me. So you've got Walt's lamp in the
Mhm.
light up on the second floor, and you've got some of those side alleys that you can go through. It's not all shops like it
So,
is in
John,
Walt
according
Disney
to the, I guess it's what do they call the moms panel now? What have they called the moms panel? According to
The
them,
Disney Plan Disney panel.
yeah, it closed on, I think it was August 5th for refurbishment. It was supposed to open. I don't know if it did. September 13th, which was
Oh,
yesterday.
okay. So it opened after we were
Not
open.
yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have the Carnation Cafe. So that was we had never been to Carnation Cafe before, and we were able to squeeze in a reservation for that. I really enjoyed that. We got out of the heat. We got an indoor. You can sit outside or inside, but we were able to get an inside spot. So that's very unique. They have the Gibson Girl ice cream parlor. They've
Mm.
got the what's the place where they play some of the old Disney movies there, which the cinema. So they still have a cinema there. They still have a shooting arcade within Disneyland,
Oh, wow.
and I went to try it, but the all of the change machines were out of order,
Wow.
Oh,
and I never carry change in my pockets anymore.
no.
Mhm.
So I didn't get to use the shooting arcade.
I think some of the things you've mentioned and discussed were things that we once had here at Walt Disney World.
Right.
Yes.
Of course, they were at Disneyland before they were here at Walt Disney World because Disneyland's been there much longer. Um, and I think though for people who have been to Disney World and miss those things, that's another reason to go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So that's another one of the differences yet similarities of the two parks.
Yeah. So they certainly have that similar feel, and I've noticed the same thing. I've been fortunate enough to get to Disneyland Paris and to Tokyo Disneyland. They all have that similar feel, but they're all so unique
Mm-hmm.
and different in the way that they the types of attractions they have. Even if they do have the same attraction, they're very different. You talked about It's a Small World. I personally love the fact that they have Disney animated movie characters in It's a Small World there, but I think they blend in so well. They are in
Mhm.
the style of the dolls,
Yep.
they
Yes.
and I think they work so well, and looking for them, I I really like It's a Small World there. I loved It's a Small World over in Paris because it's so bright and colorful, but the original It's a Small World definitely has its own feel and is definitely worth doing that attraction, even if you've been on other It's a Small Worlds and
I
other.
think Michelle and I rode it twice when we were there.
I think we all did.
Yeah.
I was knee high to a grasshopper when I went on It's a Small World at the World's Fair in New York.
All right,
Yeah, I was like,
That's right.
we have to do the preview.
but I still remembered some of the things, which is great. Like I remember the ramp, not the ramp, the staircase walking up to get around and then onto the boat. It's weird how that from the time I was like not an infant, but a baby or
Yeah.
a peewee, that I
Yeah.
remember that.
Hmm.
And it's just it's California's very different from the World's Fair in New York or Disneyland, but it just like memories just flooded back from being a pipsqueak.
Hmm.
Well, and once you've been to Disneyland, you you know what It's a Small World really looks like.
Mhm.
When you've been to Disney World, you don't even see the facing of It's a Small World
Right.
until you get into the queue, and then you see the clock and all of the facing, whereas in Disneyland, it's outside.
Yeah. You know what? I've always thought this. I think hiding it in a building, and that's what it is. They're hiding it in a building is,
You're losing.
it's a
You're
shame.
losing. You're losing
Yeah.
something. And
I
in
think
the
they could have recreated something like the Haunted Mansion stands on its own. They could have done the same thing with It's a Small World.
well, and
Hmm.
i- in I was just in Paris earlier this year. They've got an outdoor facing, and it looks
Mhm.
after having been to Disneyland, and Disney World, it's got the look that you want. It's got
Yeah.
that feel, and it's more like you're in a carnival when you're in Walt Disney World. So
Yeah, at Walt Disney World, it almost looks like, okay, we've got this number of attractions. We've got to put in this space here.
yeah,
How do we do it?
yeah, right. And it still has that facing, but it's indoors.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the manicured
No.
trees and bushes and grass and water. It just doesn't have that organic
You
feel.
know, it would be nice to see them open it up somehow, without moving it. Of
Right.
course, they could, but I without moving it, I think they could open it up and make it a little more unique to where it is.
Yeah, I think the challenge with it would be is there's something behind It's a Small World in
Yeah.
Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
In Disneyland, there's nothing behind it but
That's
the
right.
railroad.
Yep.
And so, the show building itself doesn't have to be
Yeah.
obstructed. Yeah, that's the big
It's true.
challenge because
Very
it's in
true.
the middle of the park, not on a corner.
Yeah. And if Kurt were here, he would tell us exactly why they can't do that.
Well, we can still ask him.
Yeah. And he'll be happy to tell us. He should be back next week, by the way.
Yes, we miss him this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else is there's Soarin'. It is in almost like it looks like a hangar.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so certainly the outside of Soarin' is very different. Now right now they do have Soarin' Around the World, which is
Okay.
what we have in Florida. However, the end of Soarin' Around the World is Disneyland. Where is it still Epcot?
Yes.
Yes.
Florida.
Epcot.
Yeah, so the end is different between the two, and certainly the outside is different.
Wait, have they
Yeah.
put it back from California?
Yeah, it's not Soarin'
Yes.
over California; it's Soarin' over the world.
Soaring over the world. Yeah.
Oh, they did switch it back.
Or soaring
Okay. So
around
last
the
time I
world,
was
yeah.
on, it was California.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was not. I would have liked to have seen that again. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
I'd like to see them do a Soaring Around Florida and then
Okay.
switch off randomly between Around the World, California, and Florida.
there
Oh,
you go.
that would be nice.
That'd be good for repeatability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were certainly missing the Country Bears. They're not there anymore. We did go
Oh, in California.
in California,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we did
Wow.
go on the Winnie the Pooh ride that took over for them.
Okay.
I have seen the new Country Bears. Darling, have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't been to the parks yet.
It is for me, I know Kurt will hate it because he loved the original, but for
Yeah.
me, it's a very welcome change.
Good. Okay.
I'm looking forward to trying it. I love the original Country Bears, but I have a feeling I'm going to like the new one.
What's the
it's really
difference with the Winnie the Pooh ride at Disneyland?
It's mostly, well, there's quite a few differences. So the outside is completely different. It's built into a hill.
Oh.
So you go in, it doesn't have the building. It goes into a hill. So that must have been where the Country Bears were before in Critter Country. And then at the end of the one in Walt Disney World, you have the rain, rain, rain came down, down,
Yes.
down. And it was hooray for Piglet and hooray for Pooh too. Well, it didn't have that. It didn't have the rain, rain, rain came down, down, down. And it's a happy birthday to Pooh, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, there's some of the similar parts to it and components, but it's got Pooh dreaming and floating, and you've got Tigger bouncing around, but it doesn't have that rain scene at the
Oh,
end.
the
And I
end.
don't think it had the owl's tree blowing over.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it had that either.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a bit of differences there.
Yeah.
So, similar kind of ride, similar feel to it, similar
Interesting.
ride vehicles, but the overall course and scenes you see are different. Some of the same music, but some different music as well.
Now, their main street is shorter because of the space involved, or is it Disney World? Now you've got Was it Mr. Lincoln?
Yeah, great moments with Mr.
Yeah.
Lincoln, which was down when we were there.
It's a shame.
Oh, okay.
But I think the feel of Main Street, and you have the firehouse where Walt slept.
The firehouse and his,
But I think the
his
feel of
apartment.
Main Street in Disneyland is just like more, because I think it brings you close to what Disney's image of what Magic Kingdom became, and has changed greatly since then.
Yeah.
I think it's closer to what it was than what at Disneyland than what it is at Walt Disney World. So for those who haven't been to Disneyland, that's another reason why
Oh,
you could see what Magic Kingdom used to be 20 years ago,
yeah,
or something,
absolutely.
maybe
And
30 years ago.
I had mentioned before, Fantasyland, it's just got a little cozier feel.
Yeah.
And in Fantasyland, we talked about some of the dark rides that are different, but it also has unique things like Storyland canal boats and Casey Jr. Circus Train, which, there is nothing like that in
Yeah.
Walt Disney World.
Now, are you sad that the ferry is going to be leaving Walt Disney World for Cars Land?
You're talking about the riverboat.
Yeah, the riverboat. I'm sorry.
Riverboat, yeah. That's the
Riverboat.
ferries are going away from the
Sorry, I meant the
Yeah.
riverboat. I meant the riverboats.
I knew what he was talking about, but
Yeah.
What I will say is I think it's one of the benefits of having Disneyland and Walt Disney World. So we
Mhm.
talked about some of the things that you can only do in Disneyland or Walt Disney World. You're still going to have, so they don't have, it's not called Tom Sawyer's Island. They have Pirate's Lair. So they still
Mhm.
have the island there. They still have the rivers of America. They have the Mark Twain riverboat.
Mhm.
They have the sailing ship Columbia, which is a unique galleon that they don't have in Walt Disney World.
Mhm.
They also have canoes where you can get into a canoe. So those
Oh,
are
wow.
all unique things. So
We missed that.
I think that dichotomy works really well.
Yes, I agree.
If you were going to keep the rivers of America, you should keep it in Disneyland.
Yep. You know what? Disneyland to me is becoming the park for the traditionalist Disney fan.
Mm.
If you like what it once was, even in Disney World, then you're going to love Disneyland, and that's
Yeah.
a place you need to go.
Yeah.
Whereas I think here they're more experimental, and you know what? It should be changing as times change. It should be changing and keep growing. And I don't want to say expanding because it can only expand so far.
And then you've got that reason to go to both parks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they don't have to be, and they already are not copies of each other. They're very different from each other.
Right.
They've got the same feel, they've got some similarities, but then it just differentiates them even more when those things change in Walt Disney World, but remain the same or similar in Disneyland.
Yep. I agree. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss before we wrap this up? We're pushing more than an hour now.
Yeah. No, we had a great time. As I said, we were able to get things done in the morning using multi-lane lightning multi-lane passes helped us to get that done without staying out in the sun. So, did I like having to pay extra? Not necessarily, but was it money spent well? I think it was.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
enjoyed doing the races. It was very warm. So it was 76 degrees at 5 a.m. when the
Oof.
races were going off, which is warm for running. And it really showed with the runners that my times were slow.
Mhm.
But I also saw everybody else's were as well. But it was great to do the Halloween races there. It's a different set of races than you can do in Walt Disney World. Last thing I want to say about Run Disney, they had the best 5K I've ever been in. It was a 5K that started in Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
Everybody, there were 7,000 runners lined up on Main Street.
Wow.
And they had projections on all of Main Street. They had fireworks going off by the castle. They had music playing. They had Disney Halloween music playing. It was a big party. And I've never seen anything like that in a Run Disney race at Walt Disney World before.
I really wish I could have been there.
And people seemed to love it. So you were around a lot of people, so there was a crowd, but it wasn't the typical corrals. It was everybody on Main Street.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
Amazing.
And then, if you did the 5K and the 10K, everything you did was within the parks. The 5K, you got to do both Disneyland and California Adventure. And the 10K, you did both parks, just more of them. So the half marathon extends into the streets of Anaheim, but those two races, you really got to see those parks, plus some backstage areas, like I said. So we're really glad we did it. We survived the heat, and now we're looking forward to going down to Disney World.
All right, sounds good. All right, I want to remind everybody, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us reach more Disney fans like yourself, whether you're watching us on YouTube, listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Amazon. I mean, we're all over the place. You can find us anywhere, almost. And I'm sure people say to themselves, but why? For shows just like this. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. We will be back next week with another episode of the WDW Fans On Show. So until then, everybody, be safe, be yourself. Bye-bye.
Well, Jess said she wasn't going to do it, but where else can you do a Earth, Wind, & Fire song and have it be meaningful for Disney? So I've got to finish with, do you remember 21st night of September? We hope you remember to come back and see us next week, and have a great rest of your September. Good night.
Ah, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. Thank you, John. Have a magical night. Stay safe and pack your sunscreen, your ponchos, and your patience for the lines.